All right, so in this one, I want to talk about the Quirk Singularity and how it's going to affect the future of the series because it's kind of important. They've been setting this up for a reason. Also, I have to talk about what's like currently going on with the series, I suppose. So, if you only follow the anime and you don't want to know what's going to happen past season 4, I suggest you check out now. All right, so first, let's talk about the Quirk Singularity because we have to establish what that is. Like I said, pretty important. So this thing is first name dropped, I think, in chapter 166 by, of all people, Shishikura. Like when he's observing the little kids at the remedial course makeup thing. Where we all see those kids that we're super intrigued with. The binging ball quirks and the cannon mouth quirks and all that stuff. And they're super impressive. I mean, even present Mike, when he's observing them, he's like, wow, I can't believe they're so efficient with their quirks at that age. When I was their age, I was, not even that close to being as efficient with their quirks as they are. And then Shizukura's like, oh, that's because of the Quirk Singularity. So, what is the Quirk Singularity exactly? Well, it was a theory composed by another interesting character, Dr. Yujiko, one of the main villains of the series. And he basically said that as generations follow, quirks will blend and evolve, producing stronger and more complex quirks. But as that happens, they're going to get stronger, of course, naturally. And the quirks will also become more difficult to control. And since the human body doesn't evolve quickly enough to keep up, it's eventually going to get to the point of where quirks are just going to be way too overpowered, have way too many abilities to have way too much nuance, and no one's going to be able to control them. And even if they can, then there's going to be other people that are popping up with it. And it's just going to get to the point of where, I guess it's like the apocalypse almost. That's why they're calling it like the singularity, because it's a point where everything is going to converge and we're all going to essentially come to the same fate. That's why it's also called the Quirk Singularity Doomsday Theory. So we already see this happening as we're watching the series play out. Like Eri, I'm sure a lot of you thought of her when I was just reading off what this theory is. Now, she's not directly a result of the Quirk Singularity per se, because she's more of like an anomaly. Like her, or at least they say that her quirk was just like, it was just spontaneous. It just came out of nowhere. It was a mutation. Like her parents didn't have it or anything like that. So, I mean, if we were talking like strictly Quirk Singularity, it would be like maybe one of her parents had some kind of accumulation quirk and her other parent had like some kind of manipulation quirk, and maybe they both related to time or something. And then when you fuse them together, then you get Eri's rewind quirk. And then that's when we start getting into like Doomsday territory, because, okay, so let's just say Eri has this quirk, which she does, and she grows up and nothing bad happens to her. She's able to live like a normal life with this quirk somehow. And she meets, another person and they have a kid. Now the kid, in theory, is getting her rewind quirk on top of, the other parent's quirk as well. And that person could have another busted quirk for all we know. So let's just say, I don't know, they have like the quirk to shoot lasers from their eyes. Now they can, now their kid can shoot lasers from their eyes and have the rewind quirk. And then it's going to keep going on, and it's going to keep going on. Because that person in theory is going to have a kid as well. And then we're going to get to the point of where there's just going to be a whole bunch of Aries freaking out all over the world. So as I say that, I mean, it makes sense to you, right? I mean, it makes sense to me, given the rules that have been established about how quirks are hereditarily passed on throughout the series. But that brings me to like the other interesting thing about the Quirk Singularity theory itself within, the My Hero universe, is because back in the day, when Yujiko came out with this, apparently no one believed him, and they mocked him, and they said that there wasn't enough evidence and it was absurd and all this stuff. And that's strange, right? Because like I said, we've already established that quirks can be hereditarily passed on, and they obviously knew that back then. I don't think he discovered this like at the very beginning of the quirk, the dawn of the quirks, before they even knew that quirks can be passed on hereditarily and stuff like that. But like, even then, like, time would pass on and you would see like, oh, this is definitely a thing. It kind of like reminds me of like global warming in our reality, because it's, there was people back in the day that were like, oh crap, we're destroying the environment. It's eventually going to catch up with us. And, there's going to be a doomsday because of it. And then, of course, we have a whole bunch of naysayers, even currently to this day, most of them politicians, saying that, climate change isn't real and all that stuff. And it makes me think like, okay, this is plausible, but maybe they should have, or Horikoshi should have said maybe like politicians were trying to stop it or something, because it's like it's imposing fear and everything, and like don't mix quirks and all this stuff. It would just cause a lot of panic within the society, rightfully so. But at the same time, you just don't want to stifle it and lie to everyone. And also, of course, Horikoshi is Horikoshi. He's one of the best mangakas ever, in my opinion. So I'm not trying to tell him how to write a story. I'm just saying. It makes sense to me that the Quirk Singularity would be a thing after finding out about how quirks are passed on hereditarily. That's all I'm saying. Just think about it. But anyway, that brings me to where we are currently in the series, and I see that we have the two strongest quirks in existence essentially forcing the Quirk Singularity upon themselves, I guess, because like it's happening on both ends of the spectrum. It's pretty fascinating the way that Horikoshi sets this up, along with the narrative that we're talking about here. So of course, we just saw Shigaraki artificially get boosted with the OG All for One, preloaded with a whole bunch of quirks. So he's got the awesome software, and then on top of that, Yujiko gave him the hardware. He modified his body on top of that to be able to accrue this massive power surge that he's gaining. And also, let me go back to, this is, the whole thing about why All for One went to Yujiko, or at least that's what's implied, that All for One was like one of the very few people that believed in the Quirk Singularity theory from Yujiko, and he tracked him down. It was like, hey, dude, you're pretty cool. Let's work together. I'm pretty much God. The only thing I'm missing is your intelligence, so let's do it. And also, All for One was aware, because of all of that, that his own hardware wouldn't be able to keep up with the software that he was getting, because while he was able to, hold many powerful quirks at the same time, his body wasn't able to handle it. So he needed Yujiko to manufacture a way to be able to, just become like literally God of the world. And that's where we're coming to with Shigaraki. That's essentially the end of this like 70-year plus plan, I suppose, that they've had going on here. And he's forcing the Quirk Singularity to happen using Shigaraki as a vessel. Because like I said, he was preloaded with all of these quirks, which naturally would happen over hundreds of years. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, with Izuku and One for All, we have a very similar thing happening, although slowly. Found out that the vestiges that and the previous users and holders of All for One are going to pass their quirks on to Izuku slowly. He just received Black Whip last year, and it was just revealed by All Might that he's likely going to receive Nana's float quirk next. So he's going to be able to like fly more or less next. And then the other ones are probably going to be not too busted, because it was also implied that like the previous users weren't like super mega powerhouses that had these busted quirks. It was kind of just passed on out of necessity. Like they were there at that time, so they needed to pass it on. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. You're probably just going to get a run-of-the-mill dude like Black Whips, float, stuff like that. So regardless, he's still going to have more quirks than just All for One, which is already the best quirk pretty much. Again, forcing the Quirk Singularity, because Izuku can't even control his base quirk. Base All for One. He's like in the similar state to Eri. As where Eri's like destroying everything around her, Izuku's kind of just destroying himself. I mean, granted, maybe if he wanted to, he could destroy, a city block with like a smash if he wasn't, being careful or something. But regardless, we see the same thing happening here on both sides. The light side of the force and the dark side. But that also shows us what the end game could look like. Granted, I've been talking about a lot in these My Hero videos I've been making lately that I'm not sure if the series is going to end with this arc. I certainly hope it continues. Maybe goes into some kind of post-time skip. Made multiple theories about it. Please check it out if you're interested in that stuff. But if it does continue, and we go into like a second half of the series, it shows us like these two powerhouses at the end of it. Because like I said, if these two things come to fruition, which they definitely will, we'll have Shigaraki at the peak of All for One with, who knows how many quirks. And then we're going to have Izuku on the other side, 100% full calling with all of the quirks from the vestiges. That's awesome, right? So we're going to have that final battle as a result of all of this stuff. And then after that, I don't know what they plan to do to fix the Singularity, because even if Izuku defeats Shigaraki, it's not going to stop the Singularity Doomsday, so maybe they'll figure something else out. But let me know what you think about the Quirk Singularity and how it's going to play out in the rest of the series in the comments. If you liked the video, if it entertained you, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you extra weekly Q&A. If you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.